And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a board game called Coral Islands from Alley Cat Games. And what's interesting about this particular game is that it's actually two games. One of them is called Coral, and the other is called Islands. I'm not joking here, that's what this is. This is two different games. In fact, there's two different designers for the game. Same artist, same company. It says 15 to 45 minutes. I don't know about the 15 part here. Probably 30 to 45 minutes per game. One of them is a dice placement game in which you're trying to make Tetris-like shapes. And the other is a dice movement game trying to get area control. I'm going to show you both games right now. So let's talk about Coral first. In Coral, players are going to each have a set of dice of their color, and you're going to play with a set of cards. This is the cards that you start with for your very first game, but you can play with different sets of cards, and there's going to be a certain number of cards in each pile based on the number of players. Players are going to have two dice that they roll and put in front of them, and the first player will go and they'll put one of their dice here in the middle. After that, each die must touch another die. So when you touch another die, you can put it next to it or you can put it on top of. But you can only put it on top of another die if it is a higher number or a 1. A 1 can go on top of anything, including another 1. If after you place the dice, you place a die on top of a fish, you'll get one of these fish tokens. If on your turn you cannot create one of these shapes at the end of your turn, you also get a fish token. And that's kind of the whole point here. The whole point is after you place a die, you're trying to create a shape. Now what you want to do is you want to create a shape. So let's say here, and the shapes are all going to be kind of looking at the dice here, up and down. So here I have this card, which means one color of someone else's die and two of my own. This one here, other colored dice, they could be even different players, doesn't matter, and then those are my own. So here you can see I have this shape being made if I'm the red player, a green die here, and two red on top of it. So I get this card, which gives me another fish token and a point. So you place a die, roll and add another die. Now, what are fish tokens for? You can use them to decrease or increase the number of pips on a die. And if you have 3 of them, it gives you a chance to place both of your dice on the same turn. There's also a solo version of this, but either way, other than that, you'll play until everyone's dice are placed on the reef. And then everyone reveals the cards that they've gotten. You keep them secret, I guess, so people forget. And whoever has the most points is the winner. In Islands, you're going to play with the other side of the board and put a 1 die of each color on different spots on the board. There are 2 additions. I have 1 attached. If you play the normal board for 2, 3, and 4 players. You're going to play with 3 different specialists here. There are different ones in the game. You can just pick 3 of them to play with. And then this deck of cards. So on a player's turn, they're going to turn over and put a card on top of each of these. And then they're going to pick one of the specialists. So let's say I pick this one, and then the next person, they're going to do this. So there's going to be more cards on top of these specialists as time goes by. When you pick a pile of cards, or it could just be 1 card, you're going to pick one of the cards to keep. And that's going to hopefully score you points at the end of the game. But that is also the die that you're going to be moving, and you're going to be moving it a number of spaces, or up to a number of spaces of the cards you took. A die can have any value on it when you move it except for 6. When it's 6, it's done moving. But when you do move it, you're going to add 1 to the value. So if I move the purple 2, I can move it 1, 2, and put it on top of this one. Each of the specialists has something different, like this seismologist can move your die with the one below it. I can move a die that's on top of the color you chose. And here I can move my die into dice of the same value rather than on top of one of a lower value like you normally have to do. At the end of the game, and that's when this pile runs out, you're going to evaluate each color. So you're going to add up on the cards that you've kept the star value you have of that color. And you'll see these have different star values on them. Whoever is the highest is going to claim the stacks of that color. So if I'm yellow, I would get this stack, this one, this, these two, and that stack if I have the most of yellow. This other number, by the way, here is mostly just a tiebreaker down in the bottom corner. So you're going to be collecting all these dice, and once that's done, whoever has the most dice is the winner of the game. The dice are fine. You know, they're not amazing dice, but they're good for what they are. You can tell the colors, and they stack well. There's not the same numbers of each color die, and that matters especially in Coral. So, for example, if you're playing a 2 or 3 player game, you got to use red, yellow, or green because there's not enough of the other colors to play with. There's plenty of cards. The cards are very clearly labeled Coral or Island, so you know which game they go with, and there's little reference cards on what to do for each of the games. You just flip it over. So there's a lot of nice components here in the box, and I would say it's well done. Well, first of all, Islands is the better game of the two. Coral, well, actually now I'm getting confused. Which one? Yes. Islands is the better game, the one where you move the dice. Then the names don't match at all. Coral, I guess you're making shapes, so that's Coral. Coral's okay at best. I found it to be fairly boring. Coral is a movement, build these shapes, so it's kind of like a really, really slow version of Tetris with dramatic possibilities for analysis paralysis. I can go and look at the board, and if I put a die here and that, and then they threw in luck, the numbers you have on the dice. Yes, you can mitigate that luck with the fish, but for a slow, thoughtful game, no. There was just nothing I liked about that game at all. It just felt boring and slow. Yes, there's different shapes. Yes, you want to use other people's dice, so you don't want to set up someone else, but sometimes you have to do your own. But again, the whole game just feels like it feels kind of like, you know, if you're watching a boxing match, but they're moving in slow motion, and they know they're moving in slow motion. And that's just not a good game. Islands is a better game, but still not great. Islands takes a lot of things that we've seen in abstract strategy games before. There's a lot of games where you try to move and get things on top. The most famous of these is a game probably called, or I shouldn't say, probably the most famous of these is a game called Devon, D-V-O-N-N, which does this great job. It's fast, quick, moves around, trying to get these piles. Here you're slowly doing dice, and you're also slowly getting area control. And once again, this has that same negative trait, is that it's slow. I get that these games are short games, 15 to 45 minutes, but they don't feel short. Short games should be quick, snappy, and entertaining. Both of these games feel like slow slogs. And this one, I'm going to take this group of cards, which gives me a special ability. How am I going to use that special ability? Which die on the board am I going to move? Now, granted, this is a shrinking board game as the game goes by. There are fewer and fewer dice to move. And this one has no luck in it. Almost. Those cards that come out. I'm trying to win green. My turn. There's no green cards out there. As soon as I'm done, a green card comes out. The person I'm fighting with, Bob, takes it. There's nothing I can do to stop it. So now if I've invested in green, sure, if Bob's winning green, I can move my dice on top of the green and mess them over, but I don't get anything out of that. And so this game kind of makes you try to invest in all the colors and try to win some of them. And it's very possible, especially in a multiplayer game, to get no points or very few points. And it doesn't feel like it's very strategic. It feels probably best at 2. Going back and forth with 2, but then the luck of the cards that happen to come out on any given turn, like if you're battling over purple and a good purple card comes out on my turn, what are you going to do? I'm going to do better than you. Whenever there's 2 games in one box, that always is a warning sign for me. That means neither game was strong enough to carry the box on its own. Unfortunately, in this case, I don't think both of them are. Even combined, I don't think this is a game that I would get. It's pretty, and they're interesting, and it's kind of neat that they used almost the same components. I mean, there's 2 completely different decks of cards, but almost the same components for 2 games. So I guess if you're looking for economy of boxes, like, hey, this box has 2 games in it, there you go. Other than that, I can't recommend it because I want a faster game to actually be, a little fast. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching the Dice Tower. We've been talking about Coral Islands. Dice Tower Judgment, it's okay.